This is Behind the Mic with Brad Dalius.
From Kings Cove inside the Toyota Sports Center here in El Segundo, it's Behind the Mic. Brad Dalius and Keith Jackson coming with you from 7 to 9 Pacific time tonight. Come on inside. It is a packed house. Lots of hockey going on around us. Lots of screens around us as well, Keith. Lots of basketball going on. More March Madness. More conference tournament action today. As we speak, the Trojans currently have a 10-point lead over Oregon State at the half. That one coming to you from the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. So SC taking care of business so far early in that one. Earlier today, last night actually, great finishes in the Pac-12 tournament. You had Oregon State knock off Washington in overtime, 69-66. And then Oregon had a come-from-behind victory in thrilling fashion over Washington State, 64-62. That was both last night. Both those teams advanced to today. Oregon State, as I just mentioned, taking on SC at the moment. Oregon and Utah going to tip off after the SC-Oregon State game has finished around 8:30 tonight. And then over on the other side of the bracket there, you have Arizona, who was big victors today over Colorado. They took care of the Buffalo 83-67. UCLA all over Stanford as well. So we've got Arizona taking on UCLA in the semifinal tomorrow night as that conference tournament continues to roll along. Besides all college basketball stuff that we have plenty of NFL talk to get into today, the big news right off the bat, the breaking news, the Los Angeles Rams acquire Aqib Talib for the Denver Broncos for a 5th-round draft pick in this year's draft. That's the big news today here out of L.A. Big move for them. I mean, a big move. Talib is a player, obviously, who has been around now several years, Keith. And he really became somewhat of a household name when he was traded to the Patriots in 2012. 4 years in Denver, and now he comes here to L.A. to play for a Rams team that is on the rise, to say the least.
Absolutely. I mean, what you have to say about this is basically the Rams are going for it this year. They're not playing around. They want to improve on their defense. And I think they had a great offense, but they want to definitely improve on their defense. I think their defense is great with the lead of Wade Phillips leading their defense as a defensive coordinator. But what this says to the league alone in the NFC is that the Rams are competing with the Philadelphia Eagles, and they want to be a front runner, and they're being aggressive in getting these guys right now. I mean, it's great that Broncos are going to get a 5th-round draft pick. I think that the draft this year is strong this year. But to pick up someone like Talib Aqib, that really changes a lot of a dynamic to your defense. I mean, that he shuts down, when he's healthy, he shuts down one half of the field. So this is a great move for the Rams in acquiring him. And I think what this does to them now is catapult them to either a number 1 or number 2 type of team in the NFC, a team to be reckoned with.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, couple that with the offense and Jared Goff, Todd Gurley coming back next year, the Goff-McVay tandem at quarterback head coach. It's very exciting for Rams fans right now. I mean, not only did they acquire Talib today, they also signed Sam Shields, who played for the Packers for many years, a good quality, serviceable defensive back at this point in his career. I mean, you have Shields, Talib, other guys they've added to the secondary. And like you said, Keith, I mean, with Wade Phillips leading the charge of that defensive unit, they're already, to me, going into the offseason, they were already the top defense in the NFC West. But now you talk about these moves, the guys they've added, also the fact that Seattle is losing some players, Bennett out the door, who knows if Sherman is to follow as well. San Francisco, we don't know what their defense is going to look like yet in 2018, and obviously Arizona is in rebuild mode for the most part, and that defense, outside of Honey Badger, doesn't have a lot of big-time players. Of course, they have Chandler Jones, but they're just not there yet on the Rams level, so there's no doubt, however you slice this, it's exciting news for Rams fans. By the way, we have a great show tonight here on Behind the Mic. Christian Rivas is going to call in from SB Nation. He is a blogger for them, covers all things Lakers. We're going to talk about the Lakers' big victory last night over the Orlando Magic at Staples. It was a little bit of controversy. Keith knows about that. He has some thoughts on it. We'll talk about it tonight as we get into some conversation with Christian around 8 o'clock or so. As I said, besides this breaking news with the Rams, the Titans are reportedly going to cut DeMarco Murray. That's big news as well. And we have to get into the Le'Veon Bell situation with the Steelers. So there's still a lot to cover in the NFL. But this move is a win all the way around for the Rams. For the Broncos, they get a 5th rounder, like you said, Keith. But I think it hurts their pursuit of a guy like, Kirk Cousins, trying to bring him in when you're losing one of your top defensive players. They don't have a quarterback. The future is very uncertain for Denver right now, and they're just moving in a direction that is more towards a rebuild than a reload. That's what it seems like.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the two players are really nervous is Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders.
Yeah.
Out of all people, I think because by far they are arguably the best 1-2 tandems offensively wide receivers in the game right now. And when they had Peyton Manning, they were unstoppable. You couldn't stop them both. And you see that their stats have really went down when he left, and there really hasn't been great. But I think the Broncos have to be really nervous. So the simple fact that if they don't get a great quarterback in there, that one of those guys is going to request a trade, and it's going to be very unhappy. And those are two guys you don't want unhappy on your team.
Not to mention maybe a guy like Von Miller.
Yeah.
Can't imagine he's happy with letting a guy like Talib go. So much uncertainty with that team going forward, and just not to mention the fact that they don't have a quarterback at this point in time. If Denver doesn't get Kirk Cousins, do they draft a quarterback, or do they just go with Paxton Lynch?
No. I think they still have some options. Again, they have...
You think so?
I think they can go after like a Nick Foles, I think a Sam Bradford, or a Teddy Bridgewater, because we don't know what's going to happen to him. Casey Keenum, we don't know what's going to happen to those guys yet. I think they have to go after one of those guys, out of those guys. And I think if they can get one of those guys, then I think it can make it's an improvement from what they had last year. So people want to see results. They want to see improvement. They want to see how can our team get better. If they don't get better in that area, then that's where the problem's going to lie. I think, Talib leaving, of course, it kind of hurts them in a way, but I think their main concern is a quarterback. And you got to get a good quarterback in there, and I think that's where the improvement has to happen. And I think that you have to get someone like a Nick Foles. If they get a Nick Foles, then it doesn't matter. Von Miller, those guys are happy. Everybody's happy. But I think that they need to get a quarterback in there. That's their main focus this year, is get a quarterback to get that offensive going. Because the bottom line, look, the defense was okay, but the problem was the offense was getting off the field so fast, the defense was constantly on the field. So they need a good veteran quarterback in there that's going to keep that offense on the field for a while to give that defense some relief.
Yeah, I agree. That was the biggest problem for them last year. If you remember, go back to week 2-3, they had just come off of a win over Oakland, who was projected at that point in the season to be one of the top teams in the AFC. That defense looked unstoppable, and the offense played pretty well at that point in time as well with Trevor Siemian under center. Everything fell apart down the stretch, like you said, Keith, in part because the defense was just exhausted and fatigued most of the time, and the wheels kind of fell off after that Sunday night blowout loss to New England at home later on in the season. But the big thing, obviously, is, like you said, getting the offense straight. And if I were to rank the quarterbacks that they're most likely to get, I would say that, between Foles and Kirk Cousins, I would say Foles is more likely. And if you were to look at between, let's say Foles, Sam Bradford, we both agree that Teddy Bridgewater is probably going to go back to Minnesota.
Yeah.
So we'll put that one aside. So if you look at it between Sam Bradford, Nick Foles, who would they maybe rather want between those two? Nick Foles.
Nick Foles, of
yeah?
course.
Yeah.
Fresh off of a Super Bowl, you got to go with Nick Foles. But Sam Bradford's not a bad consolation.
No, he's not. He's not. I mean, we talked about this last night. I mean, Bradford he's a guy who's been around now on several different teams. We kind of know what he is after a while. He comes out of the gates playing good football, but once teams start to, opposing defenses, the defensive coordinators see him on tape, especially in a new place, they tend to figure him out, and he tends to play more inconsistent after that point in time. So, yeah, I agree. Foles would be a better option for them if they can get it. But something that most people aren't talking about is, do we think there's anything left as far as Simeon, Paxton Lynch goes? Can they be quality quarterbacks with this team going forward, or has that ship sailed?
I think that ship has sailed. I think the Broncos fans are been patiently waiting, and they need somebody that's going to start to win now, start to compete now, because right now in the AFC, there's only two really front runners. I mean, the best teams in the AFC right now is the Patriots, the Jaguars, and then you can say the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that's it. And the Broncos used to be in that conversation, and now they have dropped off significantly that they're not in that conversation anymore. And I think that leaves a bad taste in a lot of the GMs, but also the players' mouths as well. So not being up there in that. And they're really only really one component away, and I think it is that quarterback situation. That's their biggest weak link. And I think they need to get somebody there who's going to help them win now instead of future.
Absolutely, because as we said, their window is now still with this group, and who knows, it might only be for another season or two, depending on how they keep some of these guys around, or if they don't, how many more years is Von Miller going to be an elite pass rusher? The list goes on and on. So it's something to monitor, obviously, and that's what's going on in the AFC West with the Broncos are concerned. If we come back, though, to the NFC West and look at the Rams now, with adding Shields, with adding Talib, it's not official yet. It will be official on March 14th. Yeah. But with those guys, added to the defense now, obviously Ogletree is off to the Giants. They traded him away yesterday. But this defense is top-notch. It really, really is if you go across. They are stout up front. The linebacking core is good with Connor Barwin on the outside, Barron in the middle. And now at safety, you really have to like what they've done here. There's not too many flaws, weaknesses on the defense.
There's not. There's absolutely not. And then, the other thing about the plus side is these guys are young.
Yeah.
They're young guys. Look, they finished 11-5 in their conference last year. And, the closest person to them was Seattle Seahawks that were 9-7. Then you had Arizona 8-8 and Frisco 6-10. Now, I think the only team that really catapults up there, that will catapult up there with them right now, will be Frisco.
Yeah,
and that's it. Seattle, I think they're trying to revamp their whole thing with the Russell Wilson situation and him working out with the Yankees in the spring training. I think that leaves a bad taste in their mouth. You got Arizona, who's revamping and trying to find a quarterback, the face of their program, and trying to. But Frisco is right there, so I think that's the team that they're watching. However, I think the Rams' main focus is not winning their conference, but winning out and winning out the NFC. So, with that said and done, I think they made a great decision. They got a great defense right now. And this is just a old Wade Phillips. He reminds me of Wade Phillips when he was at the Denver Broncos when they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
He had a young group of guys that could fly to the ball, and now he just added that to it. So I think he has a lot to do with a team coming over to the Rams.
Oh, I completely agree with that. He was a big influence in Talib's mind to bring him over, no question. 213-261-7491. 213-261-7491. That is the number to jump aboard. Get on now while the line is open. Wade Phillips, Aqib Talib, the reunion out here in L.A. for next season. It's exciting. I mean, I think you have to give a lot of credit to Sean McVay for originally even bringing on Wade Phillips, a guy who's been around a long time, and, you know, a young head coach a lot of times comes in and thinks, well, maybe I'll kind of do it my way with maybe some younger guys who I'm comfortable with, maybe who haven't, you know, made their bones yet in the NFL, but guys that I know I can go to town with and try and win games. You got to give him credit for bringing in a guy like Wade Phillips, who's been around obviously a long time, has been a head coach. His family has been a part of the game of football in the National Football League for a very long time. So that, again, I think this all started with the Rams' success here last year in 2017 and what they're going to do coming up in 2018. It all stems from the hiring of Sean McVay.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is that who would have thought this when they hired him? Youngest head coach in the history of the league. Comes in and is able to be extremely successful in year one, and looks like they're poised to surpass that in year two.
But the smartest thing he did was to hire Wade Phillips.
Yes,
that was the smartest thing he could do, because Wade Phillips was a coach with the Dallas Cowboys, and they were very successful. Let's be honest. You know, the reason why they got rid of Wade Phillips was because he didn't win that game against the
Packers. Yeah,
you know, but
he did stick it to Green Bay a couple years later when they visited Denver on a Sunday night.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It's just like he was a winnable coach. He's in that winning category. So I think, you know, Sean McVay's decision to go with him was a very smart move, especially as a first-year coach and a coach who's been there for a long time. I mean, Wade Phillips can give him some pointers, so, you know, I think it was a smart move on his part to pick up Wade Phillips. And look what you have now. You have a team that's going to really do some damage this upcoming season. And like I said, like, L.A. is excited. The whole city's excited about this move. I know the franchise over there is excited. And they're just going in a positive direction, in the right direction. They're making the right moves at the right time. And, you know, they're being aggressive. They want to win now. They don't want to wait. So that's great to see.
Yeah, it's all about, you know, being in the moment and, you know, being proactive versus sitting back. And, you know, they have done that. They have not sat back. They have not been satisfied. And even a lot of teams would be satisfied with 11-5 record in the division title in their first year. But no, not them. I think they somewhat have a bad taste in their mouth from losing that wild card game at home to the Falcons. It was somewhat of an ugly game in the sense it wasn't pretty to watch on the eyes. And, they lost to 26-13, and they definitely feel like they have a lot to prove coming up this year. But, again, I mean, they are positioning themselves for great success in this division coming up this year because, you know, like you said, San Francisco is probably a close second, but that's mostly because of Garoppolo, not so much the defense yet. Exactly. They still have a long way to go. But this Rams team it's really shaping into form in all three facets of the game. It really is, from offense, defense, to special teams. They're only improving and getting better at this point in time. So things are going great for them in the right direction. Talk about Le'Veon Bell now in the Steelers situation. We didn't get to it last night, but basically it's more drama in Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah.
Which we have become accustomed to as just sports fans in general. And everything that's been going on there, from the Antonio Brown situation on Facebook a couple of years ago to all the drama last year with Bell, to Tomlin, Martavius Bryant, the list goes on and on. But basically, Pittsburgh has offered him the franchise tag to play under, in 2018, $14.5 million tender. Now, he wants nothing of it. He insists he needs to play for at least 15, maybe even 16 mil per. And the Steelers have until July 16th to work out a long-term deal. If they don't get it done, he has threatened to not show up for training camp, not show up for anything until week one begins in September.
Wow.
So that's where they're standing right now. A bit of a stalemate. Will they get a long-term deal done? Won't they? I suspect they will get a long-term deal done before that July 16th deadline. just because it's Pittsburgh and they'll let it go all the way up to the last second. But I think they will ultimately get it done because they recognize his talent and his ability to be such a versatile back, catching balls out of the backfield and being one of the elite runners in this league. Again, it's the market. It's the market, and if he was just an old school true power back, this would not even be a discussion. But considering now the league has become such a passing league, and he's able to catch the ball out of the backfield, he commands so much, and this is very similar to a Kirk Cousins situation on the NFL free market. He's going to command top dollar money, and it's very similar to Bell here in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it's kind of tough, though, because it's like in the Pittsburgh Steelers situation, I guess they feel like we haven't won anything with you. We're giving you more money. We advanced, but we haven't won anything. And that's an issue that you struggle with. I think that I would struggle with as well, is that, well, yeah, you're a great back and everything, but we haven't won anything. We haven't won a Super Bowl. You've been with us for a while. We haven't won a Super Bowl with you at all. And until we win that, why should I give you that extra dollar amount? You know what I mean? So it's tough. I mean, he's great. He's a great back, arguably one of the best in the league. But my whole thing is I totally agree. I think I wouldn't even, if he was like, I'm gonna wait until week 1. I'm like, I'm going somewhere else. I'm going forward with someone else because I'm not going to wait until week 1 for this drama. This is stuff we deal with you all the time, and I think that's the problem with the Pittsburgh Steelers is they deal with too much drama, and that's why they can't get over the hump. It's because they deal with stuff outside of football that they can't nip in the bud from the beginning of the time. To be honest with you, if he was with the New England Patriots, he probably wouldn't even got that, and Belichick would have been released him. But he would have stayed. He would have taken less money for sure because he's playing with a great team that's going to get into the Super Bowl. But I just think Le'Veon Bell, I think he's money hungry. He wants more money, and I get it. He's a great back. I think $14 million. Come on, man, $2 extra million. Like, that's ridiculous. I mean, I get you're a great talent, but what is $2 extra million going to do for you? You know what I mean?
In all honesty, the running back situation is overrated in 2018 in the NFL. Just look at the two teams in the Super Bowl this year. The Eagles with Jay Ajayi, LeGarrette Blount. These aren't exactly Hall of Fame running backs.
No.
I mean, you look at what the Patriots had in Deion Lewis, Brandon Bolden.
They're not Hall of Famers.
The Patriots didn't even play one of the top guys they signed in the offseason last year, Mike Gillislee. Barely saw the field. Talk about the playoffs. I mean, the whole season, he didn't see the field for the most part. So it really is overrated. I mean, you can win a Super Bowl with a quality back these days. Even with the journeyman back, a guy who's been in the league a long time, you could win. I mean, to me, like I said, I think the Steelers will do it to please him because they seem to do this with players, Keith. Like you said, they put up with too much drama and they ultimately give in to those demands. That's what they do there. It wouldn't work in a lot of other towns, like what you were just alluding to before, i.e. New England, other places, and et cetera. But it's just not. It's probably not worth it because, again, it's been proven you don't need an elite back to win a Super Bowl anymore.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I just think they need to part ways with that. I mean, if they want to get to the next level, look, he's been there long enough that he hasn't taken you to the next level. And for you to give him that amount of money, if I'm going to give somebody that amount of money, I better be going to the NFC Championship or Super Bowl every year. Or at least in that span, they at least got to. In that span of them being there, they got me to an AFC Championship or a Super Bowl.
To me, he's a stat guy.
Yeah.
Bell. I mean, he's totally a stat guy. He was, right before the divisional matchup against Jacksonville, he was already talking about playing New England. And, no one was on the same page there. You had him and other guys looking ahead. The head coach was looking ahead, so I guess it shouldn't have been a big surprise. But still, Bell, to me, comes off as a stat guy who is mostly concerned about stats, number one. If the team does great, that's a bonus. That's the cherry on top. Now, I could be wrong. But to me, he comes off that way.
Well, that's what it seems when you look at it. That's what it looks like. I'm going to sit out till week 1. Like, that's what it seems.
No OTAs, no training camp. He says he's not doing any of that extra stuff. if he doesn't get a long-term deal done.
It's all about him. It's all about me. And like the old saying goes, there's no I in team, and this is what happens. This is why they can't get to the next step.
Listen live at BehindTheMicShow.com. Also be sure to download that Behind the Mic app. Just getting started tonight here from Kings Cove. Like I said, a big crowd inside here tonight. Lots of professional, semi-professional hockey going on. And always don't forget, if you want to check out the LA Kings, or if you're in the local South Bay area here in LA, they always practice here during the mornings on home games. So if you're in there, if you're a big hockey fan, big Kings fan, definitely come in and check out the Kings if you got to get your LA Kings fix. In addition to all other kind of semi-pro leagues they have going on here. And I was kind of telling you, Keith, earlier, it's kind of cool how, like, as the night goes along, you kind of get, up in age, the older age bracket kids, and everyone comes through. So you have the young ones earlier in the evening, and then at the end of the night, it caps off with some of the adult semi-pro leagues. So it's kind of a cool progression throughout the night here.
It is. I mean, right now we're sitting here, we're watching our future stars in NHL playing right now, and in a little game, and their parents are up here watching and stuff like that. And then, like you said, later on we'll see the semi-pro teams play, which I think is a great opportunity for those guys, because you're right in the house of the NHL Kings team, and this is just a great time for those general managers. They can look and just sit over the top and have a drink and eat and watch the teams play and see if there's some guys in their own backyard that they can pick up.
There's no other experience like it anywhere else.
This is a great place, man. It's a great place to be. It's also what else is great about it? It's a bar area, but it's also a family. We see kids in the bar area right now eating food, waiting for their brothers or sisters or friends or ever finished practicing, and watching hockey and watching all kind of sports games here. I mean, it gets no better than this. And then March Madness is coming up. It's gonna be a great atmosphere to be in. So.
Food is top-notch as well, top quality. I enjoyed some Lakers pizza tonight. I know, Keith, you were diving into the pepperoni as well.
Yeah. Absolutely delectable.
That is great, right? It is great. The food is great. The drinks are great as well. Kings Cove over here in El Segundo, right off of Nash Street. We're going to step aside for our first break. We'll come back. We'll dive into the DeMarco Murray news. He is reportedly going to be cut by the Titans. We have some thoughts on it, as we also talk about all the other news that's going on currently in the NFL. Christian Rivas from SB Nation will join us around 8 o'clock to talk some Lakers. We'll get into maybe some Phil Mickelson and some golf news as well. The Masters coming up in just a few weeks. Keith just mentioned March Madness. We are, count it, 3 days away from Selection Sunday to find out which teams punch their ticket to the dance. Will USC be one of those teams? We'll find out. Behind the Mic, live from Kings Cove. We're back with more after this.
Our military service members volunteer to protect us in the most dangerous places around the world. They step up. And when they are severely ill or injured, returning to their families is only the beginning of their long road home. Beyond all the hospitals and doctors and surgeries they need just to survive, they also deserve whatever they need to truly live. All the in-home care and day-to-day help they need to live independently, on their own terms. Wounded Warrior Project long-term support programs were established to provide these brave men and women whatever they need to continue their fight for independence, at no cost, for life. So many of them need us, and it's time for a grateful nation to step up. Find out how you can do your part at findwwp.org.
It took me a long time to be able to say Chandler has cancer, because that is such a scary word. St. Jude takes care of absolutely everything. And knowing that we don't have to pay for all of the medical expenses, that's huge.
St. Jude allowed me to focus on being a mom to Bryce. And sometimes I'm just in awe of the impact St. Jude has, not only on this community, but the world.
St. Jude is uniquely positioned to advance the cures of pediatric cancer, I think better than any other institution in the world. The contributions make a big difference.
Donors are important to us because you get the feeling that you have a team behind you. We have the resources and we have the focus. And so if St. Jude doesn't do it, who will?
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Finding cures. Saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
We all come together and stand together to serve our veterans. We invest in the latest technology.
We take the time to train the next generation of doctors and nurses. We work together to make sure we heal their bodies and their minds.
This is our mission. More than 300,000 of us working as one, together with families and loved ones. No matter where they live in this country, we'll be there.
We stand strong, united. Stand with us in caring for our veterans.
Hi, I'm Danica Patrick and proud aunt. Watching my nieces grow, play, and learn is amazing. But not every child gets to be carefree. 1 in 6 kids in the U.S. are hungry. 1 in 6. That little girl sitting alone at the playground, she can't play like the other kids. She doesn't have the energy because she's hungry. School lunch will be her only meal today. It breaks my heart that this is the reality in our country, but it's something that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste. This food is then provided to families and children in need. Being a kid should be about using your imagination, learning, and having fun. These children shouldn't have to miss out on simply being a kid because they're hungry. To find out how you can help end childhood hunger in your community, visit feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council. Everybody buckle up.
Mom.
Buckle up.
Let's go.
Buckle up.
Can we go to the store? Mom,
buckle
can we get
up.
some ice cream?
Everybody, buckle up.
A lot goes on in the car, but you're in control. So only move when you hear the click that says they're buckled in. Never give up until they buckle up. Learn more at safercar.gov/kidsbuckleup. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Hey there.
What's up, bruh?
Hello.
Aloha.
Hey, y'all.
Hey.
Hola.
Hi.
It takes a lot of voices to create the sound of us. The Y welcomes all of them with open arms. From career readiness to safe spaces, the Y is there, no matter who we are. Now, more than ever, they need your support. Donate to your local Y today. The Y, for a better us.
Read by members of the Y.
You're listening to Behind the Mic with Brad Dalius.
Welcome back inside Kings Cove. Brad and Keith hanging out here on Behind the Mic, going into 9 o'clock Pacific time. SC currently continues to lead Oregon State 39-31. Trojans with an 8-point advantage. That one coming up on about 10 minutes to play soon in the second half from Vegas. SC trying to punch their ticket to the semifinal round in the Big 12 tournament. We mentioned Arizona and UCLA were both victorious earlier. The two of them will hook up in the semifinals tomorrow. Later on tonight, Oregon will clash with Utah. The winner of that game will take on this SC Oregon State game. That's what's going on in the Pac-12. In the ACC, Duke was a big winner earlier as they blew out Notre Dame 88-70. North Carolina defeated Miami 32-31. That one actually is still currently in progress, is going on. The winner of that game will take on Duke. Clemson beat Boston College earlier, and Virginia outlasted Louisville. So that's how things are progressing in the ACC. We talked about it off the air, Keith, that Duke looks really unstoppable right now. With Bagley, Grayson Allen, everyone is clicking on all cylinders, and this looks like a much better Duke team than the one they had last year that got upset earlier in the tournament.
Yeah, this is the team that actually reminds me of winning the national championship with Jahlil Okafor when he was playing. They're a really deep team this year. I'm expecting them. I think they're going to win the ACC conference, and I think they're going to win the national championship. I'm saying it right now. I mean, that's They're a very deep team. They play well together. Marvin Bagley has had an awesome season. He's going to definitely come out the draft this year. Come out one and done, and he'll probably be a first pick of the NBA draft this year. But what surprises me off the court is that Grayson Allen, one of their players who's been there for 4 years, has come out and said that he's not going to even try to pursue his career as an NBA player, that he's going to possibly go into sports management or coaching. And that's surprisingly to me because, he has been he's broke all kind of records at Duke. He has a great niche for the game. But it's just interesting to me, like he's going, it just kind of tells you and kids and things like that everything is not just about the NBA. Like these guys some kids, they go to school and they get a full access scholarship to pursue their dreams and aspirations, becoming whatever they want to become. And here's a prime example. Grayson Allen used his basketball, his talent, to pay for his education, to pursue himself in something different than and the same thing as basketball, but not on the court. Like he won't be playing in the NBA, but he will be doing something pertaining to the sport, which is great. And I think that shows a lot of people, and it shows a lot of kids out there that there's more things than just a very select few getting selected to the NBA, to the NFL, etc. And this is a prime example of a guy that, that I think he would get drafted and play and do well in the NBA. But he has other dreams and aspirations, and it's just kudos to Grayson Allen.
This is really unusual to see a player come out this early and say that, give his future plans, what he anticipates he's probably going to do going forward. And, I kind of agree with you, Keith, that I think it's really great, just the fact that he seems to really have a clear sense of what he wants to do, if nothing less than that. And he knows what he wants, and he can kind of just, take the necessary steps that he needs to make those dreams a reality for him, whatever that may be down the line if he's not going to play in the NBA. And, I really commend him for it. And as Coach K has said, this is maybe one of the last of the Mohicans as far as a guy who comes into college, plays all 4 years, and is somewhat of a standout All-American type of player. We may not see that too much anymore if we continue to have the one and done, or until that changes at some point in the future. He could be one of the last ones. So it just seems like he's a guy who, he took some criticism during his career at Duke. He was definitely criticized for some of his, antics and some of his play on the court as well. But through it all, he really has stood above all of that noise and looks like he's going to go out on top here. And not even considering what Duke may do as a team in the tournament, but just in the sense of what he has accomplished individually, and seems to have a bright future ahead of him in whatever he may do.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, he's coming from Duke University. He's a household brand name. People know who Grayson Allen is all over the world. And the bottom line is, whatever job he applies to, he's probably going to be the front runner of that. Of a division, I'll say Division II, a mid-major Division I, but Division II, Division III, I can definitely see him head coaching somewhere if that's something he wants to pursue. But he's a household name, and he will get that opportunity, and that's just great to see.
In the Big East, Xavier took care of St. John's 88-60, and Providence was all over Creighton 72-68. So Xavier will take on Providence. That game coming up tomorrow at Madison Square Garden. Down lower in on the bracket, Villanova beat Marquette. Villanova has advanced to the semifinals. They await the winner of Butler and Seton Hall. Seton Hall currently has an 8-point advantage over Butler right now. So that's how things are shaking out in the Big East. Xavier playing well, Villanova playing well, the top two seeds. That's what you need to know at the most part right now. I do think in this tournament, look out for Xavier. I'm not sold on Villanova. I'm not sold on the Wildcats just yet. We talked about this last night. But I really like the Musketeers. I think they can make a deep run in the tournament as once we get to that point. USC continues to lead over Oregon State They're taking care of the Beavers 44-35, just under 10 minutes to play. That's how things are looking across college basketball right now with all the conference tournament action going on. Back to the NFL news that we talked at. If you missed the beginning of the show, we were talking about the big breaking news today out of LA, the Rams acquiring Aqib Talib from the Denver Broncos for a 5th-round draft pick here in 2018. Other news across the NFL today, the Titans announced that they're going to be parting ways with DeMarco Murray, to the surprise of probably a lot of people. They're going to release him after 2 years. It's not official yet, but it will be, according to the team. And this is a guy who won the rushing title, Keith, in 2016, had a career low with attempts and rushing yardage this past year in 2017. It's a player who I have mixed feelings about in the sense of how we kind of sum up his career to this point, because here's a guy who played for the Cowboys, was a highly sought-after free agent several years back, signed with Philadelphia. Expectations were through the roof. Things did not work out there, to say the least, with Chip Kelly and company. He quickly left as quick as he came, and he signed with Tennessee a couple years ago, and although he was great in 2016, kind of came back to earth last year. So it's been a very peaks and valleys type of career for DeMarco Murray.
Yeah, I have to agree. But, I'll tell you what hurt DeMarco Murray and why I think they cut him. It's the simple fact that injuries. Injuries hurt him. Derrick Henry came out and he played well. They upset the Kansas City Chiefs. And then they went ahead and played the New England Patriots. And that's all she wrote. New England took care of business. And I think what it really is that they realized that, look, we can probably we'll probably play Derrick Henry less, but we can do without DeMarco. I mean, he's injured all the time. Who knows what can happen with him down the line. And it's just not worth it for our program to keep him. And I think I agree with that. I think DeMarco Murray's injuries have really been the dark side, or a dark cloud over his head has really affected his career and long-term playing in the NFL on the team. So can I see him playing somewhere else? I definitely can. But for a certain amount of money, I think that's what is going to happen. I think he had too many injuries for people to pay top dollar for that type of running back.
He's 30 years old, as I mentioned, a career low 659 rushing yards only this past season. And I think maybe someone else signs him at some point, because he probably still has a little bit left in him. But that's probably, like you said, it's out with the old, in with the new with Tennessee in regards to Henry. And people forget about how dramatic of a playoff victory that was over Kansas City in the wild card. Yeah. And how Henry was a big part of that with their rushing attack there. And look, Tennessee is a team who is going young. They've been young with Marcus Mariota, obviously Derrick Henry here, and that's the direction that they're going to continue to go. And they have a new young coach in Mike Vrabel, who's coming in, and this is a team who feels like they are in the league of the San Franciscos of the world, who they have a young quarterback and just a young team around him, and they feel like they can compete, especially in a division where there's so much uncertainty with so many injuries.
Yeah, you hit it right on the nail. But I just think that when you look at things right now, where can you see the Tennessee Titans next year? With the fact that they got a new coach. I mean, you got a new coach now. You got you're going to go with Derrick Henry. I mean, where do you see them at? I mean, honestly, where I see them at is a 4th seed team, maybe possibly 3rd seed. Yeah,
definitely. I think they're absolutely in that discussion for one of the top teams in the AFC. I really do. And that's surprising to some people just based off of where they were only a year or two ago. But like I said, in that division, to me, they're the favorites going into 2018 in that division. You know how I feel about Andrew Luck and his shoulder injury and where he's going to be at least to start next year. You look at the Texans, love Deshaun Watson, just like everyone else, what he did last year, but he's coming off of an injury, and that defense that Houston has just so many injuries and so many uncertainties with Watt, Merciless, Jadeveon Clowney. They just have so many question marks that I really like Tennessee as one of those top teams. I mean, Jacksonville, we can't forget about the Jaguars.
That's what I was going to say.
Can't forget about the Jaguars.
You can't forget about Jaguars. I got Jacksonville as in the whole AFC conference number 2 behind the New England Patriots. I can see them. I got them. AFC, I can see them competing again next year with the New England Patriots again. AFC championship. But I got New England and I got Jacksonville as number 2 seed. I can't see, I think Tennessee, I think they're a 4 seed. I think they're right underneath Pittsburgh. Right there.
Yes. Yeah, I'll put them there.
Yeah.
I'll put them there. In the division itself, I think they have the edge at quarterback over Jacksonville.
Okay.
I'll say that. They have the edge over them, and I think they have the potential maybe to play up to that. That defense obviously is not there. The defense is not there. But they will compete. I think they will compete with Jacksonville in the division. I really do. I think they are just a team on the rise in that sense, and I think the hire was good of Rabel for the head coach, and maybe we see parallels drawn between him and a Sean McVay out here with the Rams next year here in 2018. But no question that Jacksonville is the team who is closest to New England in the conference right now.
Yeah.
They are the closest to them.
Yeah. And one thing I also want to, people forget about Houston and Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson injury. Once he was injured, that kind of took a toll on Houston, and that fell into play. I think Houston can be a good team this year, this upcoming season, if Deshaun Watson stays healthy. For sure. I think that offense does some good things. And, that's just the thing about Houston is that they just had a dark horse, that the fact that they had injuries every year. J.J. Watt, big injuries. J.J. Watt.
Are you convinced that he's ever going to come back and play a full season?
I don't know, man. It's just, I doubt it. I'm not convinced.
Yeah.
I'm not.
I don't know anyone who is. You'd have a hard time convincing anybody with that at this point, just because, he's been injured so much. And just the style that he plays with, he's almost comparable to a Gronkowski on the defense. That sound about right?
Yes.
Yeah, and it just the way they play, and obviously Gronkowski's such a physical tight end. It's different, obviously, on defense. Your chances of getting injured are probably, tenfold, just because you're going full speed at someone else and trying to take somebody down. But I think the two of them are very comparable in the way they play the game. You love to see it from if you're a football purist, because that really is how the game, you'd love to see the game played that way. But it's just too much wear and tear, especially now in 2018 with the league being faster than ever, with just the play on the field, and with people being stronger now than they ever were in the history of the league. You just can't play that way and expect to be there day in and day out for 10 years or so. It's just not going to happen with that type of play. So question marks with the Texans. Titans, again, as I said, I think it goes back to it's out with the old, in with the new. I think the Colts are the worst team in the AFC South right now.
Oh, absolutely. Look, they try to get a great coach, and that didn't happen. And I think their whole entire woes just continue, man. They gotta find a quarterback. I think it's to the point now where people just don't want to even go there and play for them. That's the tough thing about it. It's just like you got guys that don't even want to play for them right now.
It has gotten to that point.
Yeah.
It really has.
They have been like the Browns. They're getting to that point.
Yeah.
That's
a scary thought, but you are correct, my friend, on that one. It is definitely moving in that direction, which is not good. You hope, if you're a Colts fan, that Frank Reich can somewhat steer the ship in the right direction here in 2018. And maybe he can, even if Andrew Luck is not a go week one, maybe with Jacoby Brissett, maybe he can be somewhat of a quarterback whisperer in his ear like he was this season to Carson Wentz and Nick Foles in Philly. Maybe that's what he can do in Indy. Colts are definitely hoping so.
Yeah,
they're definitely hoping so.
I think Colts and the fans are hoping so. They're hoping that Luck comes back and that they can get something going, because really they haven't got anything going in a long time. So it's been a while.
You think back the first couple of years that Chuck Pagano was there as head coach, they gradually progressed in the playoffs each year all the way up into the AFC title game. And since that loss, that was the Deflategate loss, they have not been the same team. That's probably not have been the same organization since then.
Yeah.
If you think about it, really just nothing they have done has turned remotely close to gold. They'll try and reverse that trend in the draft with a high pick, obviously, here in the top 5. Everyone thinks they're going to go defense. Bradley Chubb out of NC State seems to be a popular selection for them on the mock drafts by Kuiper and McShay, ESPN. I think defense is where they have to go just because it has been so bad for them on that side of the ball.
You definitely have to go defense. I mean, that's where you start at. Is you got to go defense, something that's going to prevent, I guess, a team from scoring the amount of points. I think teams are averaging about 28 points a game on them,
It was bad last year.
It was bad. So, I think that's where their weak point is. I think their weak point is a lot of areas, but that's where you need to start at. And I think if they can start there, then they'll be all right. And hopefully they can do something like this year. I mean, hopefully they can make some surprise or shock, but I just think that injury to Andrew Luck is more serious than what people think it was.
I completely agree. I mean, me, I've harped on that one so much. It just, from day one, it didn't seem right.
Yeah.
It did not seem right there. And the fact that going into last season, there was a lot of good news. It seemed that way out of Colts land that he was going to be fine. He was going to be good to go beginning of the season. And when that did not happen, and as time went along and as they eventually shut him down, you were like, this does not seem to be panning out well for them, not only in the short term, but possibly in the long term as well. He hasn't picked up a football in over a year.
No.
That is really concerning.
Yeah. I'll be concerning for anybody. I mean, for even players to that point. I think it gets to the point where even, like I said, I think players don't even want to go to certain. That was another reason why I think even the coach didn't want to go there. Coughlin didn't want to go there because of the simple fact that Andrew Luck is probably not going to be available. Even players that come there, when you start negotiating players and things like that, they're like, well, if Andrew Luck's not there, who do you have? I think that's another team that has to make a play for a quarterback.
It's very interesting. They have not been discussed as a possible suitor for any of these guys out there, but they would only benefit, right?
Yeah.
They would only benefit. I mean, to me, Jacoby Brissett, where do we see him long term? I mean, is this a guy that legitimately could he be a starter, though?
No, he's not a starter. But he's a backup.
I think in the back.
Not right now. He's not a starter right now. I think he could be a starter later on down the line, but I think he's a backup. He's a backup quarterback. He does a solid job. But he's not your guy you need to go. He's not your front runner for sure.
So if I'm Indy, I should not be confident if Luck is not ready to go that Brissett can be my starter.
You're going to have the same outcome as you had last year.
I agree. Honestly, I think they got too carried away with Brissett's performance in that final preseason game last year against the Giants.
Yeah.
That coupled with his relationship with Bill Parcells and just the mentorship that he has provided to him. And now, granted, Parcells has had great things to say about him, but to your point, probably not there yet. A little bit too young.
He's too young.
Last year was really the first time he saw, a whole mixed bag of what defenses can present to him.
Yeah.
And it got ugly at times. It got really ugly at times. And we saw where he was, and maybe some flashes of where he can be, but where he is right now, there's just no doubt he just cannot start this season for the Colts. They're in trouble if they have to go to him. 213-261-7491. 213-261-7491. Jump aboard now. It's an open line. 51-40 USC on top of Oregon State. Just under 5 minutes to play in that one. Trojans trying to punch their ticket to the semifinals to take on either Oregon or Utah. That will take place tomorrow out there in the Pac-12 tournament up in Vegas. It's been good so far. Like I said, last night, 2 good games. You had 2 great finishes. Oregon State beating Washington and Oregon over Washington State, both games in overtime. And we'll see how the rest of the games play out the rest of the way this weekend. And obviously the other conference tournaments going on now as well. We ran through the ACC before, ran through the Big East as well. Big 12. We're really big on Duke from what we've seen. I haven't watched Duke religiously the whole season, but over the past month, I've seen them play. You just did, Keith, as well. And they just look really good. They look really, really good right now in a year in college basketball where there has been so much parity. And when we think a team is ready to solidify themselves as a bona fide favorite heading into this tournament, someone pulls back the reins on that.
Yeah.
And I think, talking about the Big Ten specifically, Michigan State looked like a team that, despite everything that happened this year off the court with that school, they continue to weather the storm and play really good, inspired basketball on the court. That could still be the case coming up here in the NCAAs, but they got knocked off by a red-hot Michigan team who went on to win the Big Ten Conference. We haven't talked too much about Michigan, but they did look really solid in winning the Big Ten championship this past Sunday. They're a team who potentially...
Upsetters.
Absolutely.
They can ruin your bracket. You got it. That's one team you got to really look into, pick in terms of when you're picking teams. That's a team that you got to really look into and research and who they're playing, because Michigan can really ruin your bracket. They're a team that, what's great about Michigan? Michigan just always starts up slow historically. Like, they're just this team that you don't really hear too much about. But for some reason, when it gets around into February, going into March, they're a team you got to really keep your eye on, because they start rolling. And their type of thing is they roll and they can go far. They can go far into the tournament. So, and I'm talking about no team stopping them. I'm talking about like even a Kansas or a Duke, if they run against them in the Sweet 16 or anything like that, you still got to raise your eyebrow and see, can Michigan pull it off? Because they're the type of team that can. Their whole team's attitude is like, we don't care who we play. We don't care about what they're ranked. It's one game at a time, and we're gonna come in there and we're just gonna beat them. And that's their attitude. You can tell the way they play, and they will ruin it. They will ruin a lot of brackets and upset a lot of people. So they're a team you gotta definitely watch, and they're a team to be reckoned with. I mean, let's say what it is. I think they'll get a great seed going into the NCAA tournament. I'm predicting maybe a 3 or 4 seed.
Yeah, I could see it. Just coming off of the championship in the Big Ten tournament, the way they played at the end of the regular season. Last year, we saw a lot of that magic. They were able to knock off Louisville when Pitino was at the helm. John Beilein is one of the better coaches, one of the better underrated coaches in all of college basketball at this point, and always can cause fits for opposing teams and opposing coaching staff. So no question, they're a team to look out for. Coming out of the Big Ten, played really well. Maybe somewhat exposed Purdue in the final. Purdue continues to play well, but Michigan just seems to be the class of that conference right now. Like I said,
back-to-back champions.
Yeah, exactly, right, back-to-back. And it's been no fluke at all. It really has not been. Michigan State, perhaps they will rebound. History tells us that, coming off of winning your conference tournament, usually teams don't fare as well in the NCAA. But as I said last year, they knocked off Louisville. They could easily do that and do more so again this year. So we'll have to see how it plays out. Like I said, only a couple days away from Selection Sunday.
March Madness, baby, it's coming.
Coming up on 8 o'clock here, live inside Kings Cove, Toyota Sports Center, El Segundo. It is Behind the Mic, going into 9 o'clock Pacific time as usual. Time for our second break. On the other side, we will speak with Christian Rivas from SB Nation. Talk a little Lakers basketball with him. Lakers taking down the Magic last night over at Staples in a little bit of a controversial fashion. We will discuss coming up after the break.
Everyone is talking about healthcare these days. America spends twice that of other developed countries on our healthcare system, yet our health ranks near the bottom. How can we stop spending so much and getting so little? Shifting to a system based on primary care can help fix the problem. Patients with a primary care doctor live longer, healthier lives and are less likely to suffer from cancer, heart disease, or stroke. Primary care that is comprehensive and coordinated also saves money. Patients who have a primary care doctor spend 30% less on health care than patients who don't. States with a high number of primary care doctors have lower health care costs and higher quality care. Primary care can help make America healthy again. To learn more about the benefits of primary care, visit www.healthisprimary.org. This message is brought to you by America's Family Physicians.
What is us?
Us is a foundation.
Us is the future.
Us is a bond.
But right now, that bond is fraying, and we need a place that could make it whole.
From diabetes prevention to safety around water.
The Y fills the gaps
and bridges our divides.
But they can't do it without us.
Donate today.
Because where there's a Y, there's an us.
Read by members of the Y.
The Y, for a better us.
Dave, what are you doing?
Just sending a gift to Dave 2037.
Who?
Me in the future. I save a little money from every paycheck as a gift to Dave 2037, so he can spend it on things like anti-gravity boots or a hologram Doberman, something cool like that. I think Dave 2037 deserves it. He worked hard. What are you getting Steve 2037?
I guess I was thinking Steve 2037 would just fend for himself.
Well, all right, but don't expect to be borrowing my anti-gravity boots.
You want to have money in your future? You got to start saving now. Putting some money from every paycheck into a savings account or contributing to your 401k can make a big difference later. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free ideas and easy ways to save, go to feedthepig.org. That's feedthepig.org.
Hey, let's just hope Steve 2037 doesn't get his hands on a cold time machine, because he is going to come back here and knock some sense into you.
This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
We're here early before they wake up. We stay late. We stay informed. We invest in the latest technology.
We take the time to train the next generation of doctors and nurses. We work together to make sure we heal their bodies and their minds.
We do this not because it's our job, but because this is about our veterans' lives. This is our mission. More than 300,000 of us working as one, together with families and loved ones. No matter where they live in this country, we'll be there.
We all come together and stand together to serve our veterans. We stand strong, united. Stand with us in caring for our veterans.
I'm more resourceful than I thought.
My suit can still make an impression.
My video games are still game changers.
And my lamp can bring others a bright future.
Because when I donate my stuff to Goodwill,
it helps fund job placement and training for people right in my community.
Now my stuff gets a second chance.
And will give someone in my community
a second chance too.
Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs. Find your nearest donation center at goodwill.org. That's goodwill.org. This message brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
We will never fully understand what we've asked of our military service members or their families, asking them to put themselves in harm's way, to endure it all. But we do understand that it's our turn, our duty, to keep them secure for the rest of their lives. Wounded Warrior Project long-term support programs help our most severely ill or injured veterans live independently, at no cost, for life, so that they might stand at ease. Join us at findwwp.org.
This is Behind the Mic with Brad Dalius.
You can always follow BehindTheMicShow.com. That is your destination for our live feed Wednesdays and Thursday nights. Also, if you haven't done so yet, download that official Behind the Mic app and check out our podcast on iHeartRadio. Back inside Kings Cove now, Brad Dalius, Keith Jackson hanging out. We're going to talk a little NBA now, as we're now joined on the line by SB Nation's Christian Rivas. He covers the Lakers for Silver Screen and Roll, their blog there they have on SB Nation. They've always have some great stuff they're putting out there, as Christian now joins us on the line. Christian, thanks so much for coming on tonight. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure. We really want to dive into, talk about this team right now because this has been an interesting season, I think, to say the least. There's been peaks and valleys, obviously. There's been some really fascinating storylines, and really the most important thing now is that the team is winning. Not as consistently as we want to see, but they're starting to win games. As evident last night, they won 108-107 over the Magic over at Staples Center. Where do you think this team is at right now, Christian? What would you say the state of the team is as we head into, pretty much the home stretch here coming up of the regular season, the last month or so?
I think they're a young team starting to figure things out. I think you have to consider that they're only 4 years into their rebuild, and their head coach is only in his second year as a head coach in the NBA, if you don't count the interim period in Golden State. So this is still a really young team, and for a young team, I think they're playing really well right now. If you look at their rotation, they have 3 rookies playing, over 20 minutes a game, which is unheard of for a team that's gonna win, I think, close to 40 games this season. So I think they're starting to slowly figure things out, and because most of the guys are in their first and second years, I think that's a good sign that they're learning how to win so early. During their time together. So I think Lakers fans should be really excited about the state the team's in, and they have a real chance to make a push in this final quarter of the season.
Okay. Well, let's get to the nitty-gritty because, I'm a Laker fan. Christian, I watched them. I'm purple and gold to the grave. I've been watching them for years. I know a lot about them and a lot about, what they do. And I want to ask you this because this is just interesting to me how typically the franchises work. You have Julius Randle, who's coming up on his contract. They've been playing him a lot. He looked visibly upset the last game because he didn't. It seemed like he looked visibly upset because he didn't play those last couple of minutes, and then winning the game. However, what I've noticed, if Kyle Kuzma was at one point their leading scorer of the team, and then Luke when he was starting when Larry Nance got injured, and when Larry Nance came back, he wasn't starting. They put Larry Nance back in, and then they went with Kuzma, and then when Larry Nance got traded, they went with Julius Randle. Is that a sign, do you think, of Julius Randle? It's like, hey, let's showcase Julius Randle and see what we can get for him for the following year, because we want hands off of Kyle Kuzma. We kind of want to keep him under the books and keep him with the team looking forward. Because eventually, Julius Randle at the end of the season is going to want his money. And I totally agree. But do you think the Lakers keep Julius Randle?
I think it all depends on how they do this summer. I mean, obviously, Magic and Rob have kept no secret that their plans this summer are to go after 2 max free agents. Whether or not they do that is yet to be seen, and we're going to find that out on July 1st. But I think it all depends on how that plays out. If they get a verbal commitment from Paul George saying that, hey, I'll play for the Lakers, but you got to take care of my people too, because Julius Randle and Paul George share the same agent, Aaron Mintz. So it all depends on how his agent wants to play it. If his agent says, yeah, Paul George will sign with you guys, but you need to take care of Julius Randle too. He's been the best player on your team for a few months now. And if that's the route you want to go, I think that's a good play long term. As far as his playing time, I know reports were that he was feeling a little under the weather last night, and it showed as he played, I think, some of his worst defense of the season last night in Orlando. And when you have a guy like Kuzma who is no better on defense, that's his area he really needs to work on, but can light it up the way he did last night in Orlando. I think you have to pick and choose there. You have to, choose between a guy that can space the floor, has a Swiss Army knife of offensive moves, or a guy that, can get you some in the paint but is a little out of control sometimes. So what they do with Julius Randle is completely up to them. He's a restricted free agent. I expect teams with cap space, particularly Dallas, to go after him hard.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you there.
Yeah.
I think Mark Cuban is definitely going to go after him.
Absolutely, yeah. Julius Randle's a hometown kid, and he's had some of his best individual splits against Dallas this season. He gets up a little extra when he's playing at home, so I fully expect Dallas to go after him. But unless it's a max contract to offer or anything over $20 million, I think there's a good chance Julius Randle suits up for the purple and gold next season.
Christian, what do you make of the transition of Isaiah Thomas to the Lakers so far? It seems that he has found, if nothing else, a temporary home here in L.A., and that there seems to be good vibes and good chemistry between him, the players, management. Your thoughts so far on IT being here in L.A.?
I think the one thing I noticed about Isaiah Thomas, because I followed him when he was in Boston, even when he was with Sacramento and Phoenix, I think the thing with him that surprised me was his ability to impact the game when his shots aren't falling, which they haven't been. He's shooting under 40% since the trade. He hasn't found a way to be that Isaiah Thomas again. And I don't know if he ever will be. I mean, I pray he does. You always, root for guys like Isaiah Thomas to bounce back full strength. But even if he doesn't, he's finding ways to help the team win. He's a willing playmaker. He makes some silly decisions sometimes, but most of the time his head's in the right place. And I think that comes with him being, a point guard in this league for so long, because he can't play any other position. He's 5'9". They're not going to put him at the 2 or the 3. So he's a very smart basketball player, and it shows when he's on the floor. The bench has improved tremendously as a result of his playmaking. You go from a guy like Jordan Clarkson, who really needs the ball in his hand to operate, to having a guy like Isaiah Thomas who isn't afraid to share the trigger. And when he's open, he can knock him down. So I think they've liked what they've seen from him so far. I don't know if he's going to get the Brinks trucks he was talking about last summer, but I would not be surprised to see him get, a Lou Williams type offer, maybe a little less, $7 million a year from a team, whether it be the Lakers or someone else.
Yeah, it seems that, excuse me, Keith, it seems that the Lakers, like I said, there's respect here, where he feels like he was not respected in Boston at the end by Danny Ainge, definitely not respected in Cleveland with how everything went down there, but here, there seems to be a mutual respect that eventually they can get something figured out. Yes, it may not be ultimately what he wants, Thomas, at the end of the day, but something that is fair across the board.
Christian, you're right on point on that. I actually have someone who's I know close to Isaiah Thomas that really saying that he won't probably get that max deal, but he will get something comparable to it where, the Lakers do like him. They like what he brings to the table and things like that. I got a question for you. My next question, though, is do you think that in Lakers' best interest that not to – because personally, I don't know. I think Paul George may stay in OKC. But do you think that that the better play would be for the Lakers is to maybe go after a Kawhi Leonard and a Giannis instead of Paul George? Because Paul George, I think Paul George is going to, at the end of the day, I think he will probably stay in OKC. I don't know. Maybe he wants to come home. Maybe he does. I don't know if that would be the actual place. But what do you think would be in the best interest of the Los Angeles Lakers if also they keep an Isaiah Thomas? So you think does that move happen to deal with the big deal of whoever they want to sign coming up? Do they wait in 2008 throughout the 2018 season, or 2019 season, or do they go right now and try to go after Paul George?
I think you take what's in front of you. I mean, obviously you don't want to do what Mitch Kupchak and Jim Buss did when they were in charge, where with their jobs on the line, they were scared of just striking out in free agency. So they offered big money to big-name players that hadn't been playing like themselves just to save face. I think they're going to be smarter this time around. I think it's an awful big Lakers fan thing to do, to assume that we have the luxury of picking players that we go after. Because at the end of the day, it's the players making the decision. Yeah. I think from their standpoint right now, Paul George is the most attainable free agent, only because I think there's a lot going on in Oklahoma City. There's a lot of factors you have to consider. One, we're in March, and there's the number 7 seed in the Western Conference with a chance to fall to the 8th seed with their rough schedule coming up. So that's one thing you have to consider. If Paul George at the end of the season is at the 8th seed and the Lakers are at where I think they peak is the 11th seed, only a few games back, you have to work until what they're building long term, I'm going to be the number one option there. Have a better chance to build a championship contender by the time the Warriors championship window comes, or flies by in 2-3 years. I'm hoping. I don't want to see the Warriors in the finals every year, but I think what Paul George has to decide is, what's my best decision as a basketball player? Because he even said when they asked him, what factors are going to go into your decision in free agency, and he says, I don't want people to think that I'm going to stay in Oklahoma City because I'm happy, because I am comfortable here. I'm happy here, but that's not what's ultimately going to come down to my decision. He's going to make the decision that's best for his family, best for him long term, and I think personally, and it might just be because I'm a Lakers fan, that Paul George's best interest is going to be in LA. Say they strike out on a guy like Paul George and they want to consider, offering a big money contract for 1 year to a guy like Isaiah Thomas. I think that's a smart move, and I think you'll see that if they don't. And having the flexibility they have doesn't only mean that they can go after free agents. They can facilitate trades where they can take salaries back without sending anything but, cheap contracts and future first-round picks. So I think they did a really good job of, maintaining that flexibility going into next summer or even the summer after when guys like Kawhi and Giannis are available. But you heard Kawhi Leonard say this morning that he fully intends on retiring a Spur, and I think Giannis is more of a wild card. I know he had an issue with the front office letting Jason Kidd go the way they did. So it's really all up in the air. But like I said, you just got to take whatever's in front of you. It's kind of like the draft. Take the best player available and ask questions later.
SB Nation's Christian Rivas joining us on Behind the Mic. Check out SB Nation's blog, Silver Screen and Roll. So, Christian, let's assume that, the offseason comes up here in the summer, July 1st comes, and let's assume that the Lakers do land a Paul George. And let's assume, just playing hypothetical here, let's assume they lure one LeBron James to LA as well. I think we've all seen the billboards now, the hashtag LeBron with the LA at the front there. We're all getting a good kick out of that one. But let's assume they land both these guys. They bring them in. Where does the management of this team, Magic and Rob, both of them, do they realistically think that they can compete right away in a snap with Golden State? Or at that point, do they feel that they still need to tweak the roster with a couple of depth moves?
That's a very good question. I think you look at teams like Golden State, when they landed Kevin Durant, they had to make some moves to facilitate that move. And I think that was the thing for me at the trade deadline anyway, because they were in a hurry prior to the trade deadline to get rid of Julius Randle. And my logic was, you don't even have a verbal commitment from any of these players, and if you do, that's illegal. That's fine, but it's illegal. I don't think they should be in any rush to move young, talented players when those are the best players they have right now. They can't think too far ahead into the future. But if they do land both Paul George and LeBron James this summer, I think you do have to start taking into consideration the type of player LeBron James is. He's going to come in here and he's going to want, to have some control of the team, historically speaking. And you saw what he did in Cleveland. The whole roster got a facelift. They offloaded first-round picks for talent like nothing. They gave up 2 first-rounders for Timothy Mozgov. They traded away the number 1 pick for Kevin Love. So you have to stop and think, is that the same route they're going to go in LA if LeBron signs? And if so, who is expendable? Is it Lonzo Ball, which I don't think it would be, because finding a franchise point guard in this league is a rarity, especially if you're not a lottery team. And assuming Paul George and LeBron James sign, I'd hope they're not a lottery team. So does that make Brandon Ingram expendable, who plays the same positions as LeBron James and Paul George? Does that make Kyle Kuzma expendable? I think those are definitely questions that they start considering, but again, I think it's a little early to be thinking about that. And even if they don't move players, I think the roster has enough talent right now to maybe not beat Golden State, but to give them a scare in the first round. I think with LeBron James and Paul George, the Lakers are going to be that team you don't want to see in the first round.
Let me ask you this, Christian, because this is something I've thought about for a while, and I think it's not far-fetched. I think Lonzo Ball, they've handed him the keys pretty fast and expected a lot of things out of him, and it just hasn't really worked out. I think now he's playing with a lot more confidence, I think, now towards the end of the season. But is this guy tradable? Is he a guy that you with the Lakerland, should they be surprised if they decide not to go with Lonzo and they end up moving him?
I would be surprised.
Okay.
I think Lonzo Ball is a better player than a lot of people give him credit for. If you look at the box score alone, I don't think it's a fair indication of the type of player he is. Lonzo Ball's a very unselfish player. You see that by his assist numbers. But he's also just a really smart basketball player.
Yeah.
He makes winning plays. He plays hard defense, which has been by far the most impressive thing from him for me. Because, the jury out on him out of college was he can't play defense. And if you're going to pair him alongside D'Angelo Russell, that's going to be a nightmare because D'Angelo Russell can't play defense. So they brought in a wing defender in Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. But it turns out Lonzo Ball can play defense. I mean, that 6'5", almost 6'6" frame and his long arms have been put to good use. His on-ball anticipation and his off-ball anticipation are fantastic. And every time I watch him play, I'm blown away because he's only in his first year and he's doing first-team all-defense stuff. Maybe not yet, but you definitely see the upside there where he's going to be an elite defender in this league for a while. And he's shooting 50% from behind the arc since coming back from the All-Star break. So you got a guy that plays defense, that can make threes, that can, share the ball, make smart decisions. That's not a player you find too often in this league. You find one-way players, defense only players like John Wall, who can, provide you a little something on offense, but he's made his money on playing hard defense and passing the ball. So I would be forced to see them trade Lonzo Ball, the type of player I think he is and he's going to be.
It's not too surprising that Lonzo is playing better, considering the fact that we have not heard from LeVar recently, Christian. I don't think that's a coincidence. I honestly, and we've talked about that here before, Keith and I on Behind the Mic, that when LeVar starts to quiet down, when he starts to step out of the spotlight and let Lonzo be his own person and player, for that matter, he would probably play better, consistent basketball, which we are seeing now. What is your thoughts on just how this whole season has transpired with the off-the-court antics, if you will, between the Ball family and the Lakers as an organization?
Yeah, I think because it was funny, even when Lonzo Ball was struggling in the beginning of the season, he was shooting leaps and bounds better on the road than he was at home. And people started, to question the same thing you were questioning. Is it because LeVar Ball isn't present? Is it because, that weight's off his shoulders when he's not playing in Los Angeles? But, I mean, at least the latter can be debunked because he played for UCLA and he was a star in UCLA. So I don't think that's an issue. I think to me personally, the only time LeVar Ball is an issue is when he starts criticizing personnel, the coaching staff, the front office management, because as much as the team doesn't want him in front of the mic, they're going to keep putting a mic in his face as long as he's, available. That's when it becomes a problem for me because, earlier in the season, you had him telling an ESPN reporter that Luke Walton had lost the locker room, that the players don't believe in him anymore. And, if you look, perhaps at that time that was true, but that's nobody's business but, the team. And I think, to Luke Walton's credit, with all that going on, he's done a fantastic job of keeping that team together, rallying them together, a young team, mind you, and telling them to block all the outside noise that comes with not only playing in Los Angeles, but now playing with Lonzo Ball, and the circus that comes around him with LeVar Ball, Lithuania, the whole incident in China with his brother. So I think it's definitely going to it's going to be interesting how they develop, but he's been a lot more quiet since the team started winning. So I think that's something to keep in mind, that winning might not fix everything, but it fixes a lot of things.
Hey, and my last question for you, Christian, is where do you see the Lakers going forward? Do you think what are Lakers fans? What is something to expect for them? What should they expect going forward? Do you think, number one, the Lakers can possibly get into the playoffs this year? That's number one. And number two, if they don't get into playoffs, coming into next year's prediction of next year, let's say even without the moves, let's say that doesn't happen, do the Lakers do better than what they did this past season? This current season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so, and I think that's going to be their pitch to free agents this summer. Is while I don't think they make the playoffs this year, only because the way the Utah Jazz and the Clippers have been playing, they're neck and neck for that 8th seed, and perhaps maybe a year or 2 years ago, a 500 record was good enough to get you in the playoffs. Even Isaiah Thomas was saying when he first got to Los Angeles that this situation reminded him of the situation he came to with Boston, where they were a young team, they were hungry, they wanted to make the playoffs, and they ended up making that push. The only difference is that season, Isaiah Thomas's first season in Boston, 40 and 42 was good enough for the number 7 seed in the Eastern Conference. The Lakers play in the Western Conference, and right now, 5 games above 500 isn't even good enough for the 8th seed. It's barely good enough. So I don't think they make the playoffs this year, but I think, going back to my original point, their pitch to free agents this year is, hey, we're going to be here with you or without you. Can your current team that you're with right now say that? And I think for a lot of teams, the answer is no. If Russell Westbrook did not have Paul George, if it was just Russell Westbrook and Carmelo Anthony, I think they would be one of those fringe all-star teams, regardless of whether or not they have the reigning MVP and a young, stud like Steven Adams on the team. I think, they're still a fringe all-star team without Paul George. And there's a lot of things you got to take into consideration. Injuries, things like that. And the Lakers right now are pretty banged up and have, won 5 of their last 6 since the All-Star break. I'm sorry, 6 of the last 7 since the All-Star break, with a bunch of G-Leaguers on their roster. They just signed Travis Ware of the South Philly Lakers to a 10-day contract, and he's playing well. It's almost like they're, the Spurs on the West Coast with the way they're bringing up talent and making them NBA players in that system. So I think that's what Lakers fans should be looking for going forward. Improvement from the young guys and, the ability to win, to play winning basketball, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, the big Los Angeles market, other factors outside of that. At the end of the day, people are playing to win. They want to be playing basketball in May. So I think the Lakers are definitely on the right path, and there's a ton to be excited about in Los Angeles.
Last question for you, Christian. Currently right now we're seeing San Antonio and Golden State battle it out on TNT tonight. Golden State trying for their 6th consecutive victory over San Antonio. As we look towards the playoffs now in the Western Conference, do you think there is a team that can legitimately challenge Golden State, or is it going to be chalk where the Warriors are easily into the finals once again?
I think Houston has a really, really, really good chance of scaring the Golden State Warriors in the Western Conference Finals. I think Golden State was banking on a lot of the guys they brought back to be the same players, and that just hasn't been the case. You've seen the decline from Sean Livingston. Andre Iguodala, most notably, has had a pretty horrific season after signing a contract this last summer. And Houston's excited. This Houston team reminds me of the Golden State team that won the first time around. They just have that buzz around them that they're hungry, they're ready to win. And I think Golden State is getting a little complacent in the position they're in. They know they're talented, but you've seen a lot this season that they're playing down to their competition. They're cruising right now, and I don't know if they're talented enough, which sounds crazy, by the way. You have 2 MVPs on the team, and you're talking about whether or not they're talented enough. But I don't think, they're deep enough to be taking breaks the way they have been lately, where they just cruise to the finish line. You can't do that against a team like Houston. Houston's going to come at you every time down the floor, and they have the personnel to do it. So I think Houston has a definite shot of putting up a fight. Beyond that, though, I don't see it. You have Portland, who I think is like the pseudo number 3 seed in the Western Conference right now, because they're not as good as advertised. No matter how good Damian Lillard is, that team isn't going to stand a chance in a 7-game series with Golden State. So my answer to that would be Houston definitively. Everyone else, they'd have to find Golden State on a really bad day.
Great insights. SB Nation's Christian Rivas. Check out the blog Silver Screen and Roll. Follow him on Twitter @RadRivas. Hey, Christian, thanks so much for coming on tonight, man. We really appreciate it. Enjoy the stretch here as we head into the playoffs coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. I had a great time.
Our pleasure. No problem at all. Thanks so much, Christian.
Yeah, thank you.
There he goes. Once again, SB Nation's Christian Rivas joining us tonight here on Behind the Mic. Great stuff. He has the pulse as far as the Lakers are concerned, the entire organization. Really just kind of covering all the bases there, from Lonzo to Isaiah Thomas to potentially what the team can do in the offseason coming up in the summer. Paul George, LeBron. If not, maybe 2019, maybe Giannis, maybe Kawhi Leonard, although Kawhi came out today and said that he wants to stay in San Antonio preferably, but who knows, right? Yeah. I mean, that could change on a dime, just like the sun comes up. So, I mean, it really, like Christian was saying there's so many things that are up in the air. That's probably the best way to sum it up.
Yeah, it definitely is. I think he had some great insight. I agree with him totally on most of the things he talked about. I agree with him, except for the Golden State Houston team. I just think that, for this point only, if Stephen Curry, who we just find out today that right now that he went out in the first quarter with a tweaked ankle, this is the second time that's happened this week for him. I think if Stephen Curry is injured going into the playoffs, then I think Houston has a shot.
We've always said if injury bites them,
then they got a shot.
Totally.
Other than that, in a 7-game series, I can't see it happening. I just think because Houston's style is Mike D'Antoni style, where it's up and down, shoot the ball. And when they get cold, you get cold, and I just think that's a Golden State style. They have invented that. They have run with that, and I think those guys just typically, when you got 3 All-Stars, let's be honest, you got 3 All-Stars, and if you go, let's go 5. You got Stephen Curry, that's a 5-star.
Yep.
You got Kevin Durant, that's a 5-star. You got Draymond Green, who's a 4-star. You got Klay Thompson, that's probably a 4-star. And then and then after that, you got just role players that are maybe like 2-stars, 3-star. Andrew Iguodala might be a 3.5, 3-star player.
You've got Zaza, who can provide some stuff for you.
Zaza's like 1-2-star, but you got role players to fit in.
And the key is to that, just kind of piggyback off of that, is that the role players, they do their job.
Yes.
That's the thing, and they're quality, and they follow through with it.
And then you look on Houston's side, you got James Harden's a 5-star, and then you have, after that, you have Chris Paul, who can be a 5-star, 4.5, 5-star. I'll say 5-star. I'll give him a 5. And then Eric Gordon is a 3-star. He's 3.5 stars. He's not quite a 4-star, but he's a 3.5 star. And the rest of those role players, 3.5. I think that's just going to overpower when it comes. Do I think Cleveland can get that? I mean, do I think Houston can get 1 or 2 games? Of course. But do I think they can beat them in a series, in a 7-game series? Absolutely not. I think that game. I think Houston Golden State gets them in 6. If I looked at it, I think Golden State gets them in 6. I just think they got too much firepower to not advance. And so, with that said, I just, unless, like I said, unless a Stephen Curry or Kevin Durant is out for the season, and then I can't see them losing.
No, and Houston, the most they would push him, I agree, would be 6. I don't think it would go 7. I don't. Like you said, there's too much there. They're going to wear you down ultimately. And yes, they'll make them sweat it a little bit if it is ultimately Golden State Houston, but the Rockets will not prevail in that series. It just won't happen. We're on the same page with this. D'Antoni's formula can get you so far. Yeah. It can get you a number 1 seed but I do not believe it has yet to be proven that his formula can win you an NBA championship.
I totally agree.
And that's the difference right there.
Yeah, that definitely is. But as far as the Lakers go, I totally agree with him. I do think that the Lakers, even without Paul George, if they don't get Paul George, that they will possibly make the playoffs. They'll do well next year as well. But I just think Julius Randle's gone. I think after this, I think Mark Cuban is going to pursue him. I think Julius Randle, he's under the weather, but I think looking at his face when I saw that game, that wasn't I'm under the weather face. That was I'm happy I wasn't in the game.
Yeah, it was a difference.
At the end of the game. That's what that face was. And I've seen that with him not just once or twice. I've seen that in him multiple times. That's how he is. I think he's going to go after his money. I think they're showcasing him. I think he's going to go for his money next year. I think the Lakers are not going to give it to him. I think the Lakers are going to try to get a max deal with some other players. And if they don't, then they'll go back to Julius. But I think Julius is going to eventually, from that point, go to maybe Dallas or wherever. But I definitely totally agree with Christian that Mark Cuban will go after Julius Randle at the end of the season.
It seems like it's going in that direction. That with everything else that's going to pan out down the stretch and into the NBA offseason 2018, it's just getting started. I mean, really, get your popcorn ready.
I got a question for you, though, Brad. Does San Antonio Spurs make the playoffs this year?
Yes. Yes, with Pop and with his ability to really make this team weather storms and to get through difficult times, I do think they will make the playoffs. Yes, I don't think they're going to bottom out here and fall all the way out.
Yeah.
I think they will make the playoffs, and who knows, Kawhi Leonard could come back and play again this year. I mean, that's possible. He could come back here at the end of March. We just don't know. That's the thing with him. That situation is so uncertain, and there's such a question mark. We don't know how that could play out. But regardless if he comes back or not, yes, I do think San Antonio will make the playoffs. They're just one of those organizations where you can count on them to be in the mix, or at least competing in the mix. They're not gonna win the championship this year. They're probably not even going to get to the Western Conference Finals either, I don't think.
Yeah.
But they could definitely push a team in the conference semis.
Oh, okay.
I think they could. I really do.
Yeah, I think with Pop as the coach, they make just the way he is in X and O's.
Yeah.
They definitely make the playoffs. They definitely make the playoffs. Now, this will prevent Golden State from going far. Draymond Green's mouth, Kevin Durant's mouth. If these guys, because you got to remember something, Draymond Green's got 14 techs. If he gets another one, he can be suspended in the playoffs. That's going to hurt him again. So I hope he learned his lesson from what he did in Cleveland at Game 5, because that prevented them from winning that championship that year.
Absolutely.
And
here's the thing, though, crazy thing, Keith. I don't think he has learned his lesson. And I think he's subject to doing what he does with his antics at any time.
Yes, and I think that's where the problem lies. Is if for me as a coach, I would say this for Houston. Just if we keep it close, let's get in Draymond Green's head. And he's definitely going to pop off eventually.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And if
I think you can take that to the bank if you get under his skin enough.
I think that works out in favor of Houston. So, and I think that's the scouting report on all the teams. It's just that get into his head because let's be honest with you. Even with Kevin Durant on the team and Steph Curry, Draymond Green is like the glue. He does it all. You know, he can score. He's the X factor. He can score. He rebounds well. He plays great defense, and you know he's the glue of the team. So I think he's the guy that if you get into his head and you get him off disjointed, that it hurts Golden State.
It does. It certainly does. Like you said, this is why he commands so much attention from the team he plays for and that organization to support him, and also for other teams to keep an eye on him because of how well he is such a valuable player to that Warriors squad. But obviously, with that being said, see, this is where these types of years, when you have teams who are going for, you know, a second consecutive championship or 3 out of 4, when teams are starting to build dynasties, this is what separates teams from being one and done in the sense of winning one championship and going away for a while, or maybe even 2 and going away for a while, versus maybe going for 3 out of 4, is teams who are unselfish and players who put the team above themselves and just put aside any kind of antics or problems they may have and don't let other teams get in their head. That's one thing that all dynasties have in common across all sports. There was never a player that was bigger than the team itself. Yeah, there's been divas, sure, but they were never a problem child, and they never caused the team to be in a position where it could affect their games and determine if the team wins or loses. That is the difference, and I think everyone is just very fascinated to see if he can keep his emotions in check and if he can be more of a asset than a liability to them in the playoffs when they're going to need him the most here, because, as you said, he is the straw that stirs that Warriors drink and creates all the success for them. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see if he can keep it in check. I just think if he does, it's somewhat luck, because I just think he is subject to go off at any time because he feels that he is somewhat entitled to calls at points in time. He feels that he is entitled to the to be the beneficiary of calls from certain referees, and that's just not a good look. It's never a good look when you have any player in the face of a referee, especially in the NBA, where there's much more of a closer proximity between the players and the referees, and not to mention, him being in the face of some different women referees in the game, and that's just not a look the NBA wants at all. No sport wants that. So, yeah, it's a big concern. It's a great point, obviously, you bring up here, Keith, about the technical foul situation with him being one away and really costing the team. This is a big job here for Steve Kerr to make sure that this team continues to support one another and that they are striving for the same thing here, and that's a championship, and that they don't get lackadaisical. Now, look, this is the tail end of the regular season coming up the last month, right?
Yeah.
We've seen, history has told us that teams who are in this spot usually don't always play well at the end, but once the playoffs come around, they turn on the high gears, and that very well could be the case with this team.
Yes.
We will find out.
Yeah, we'll definitely find out. I would say from this standpoint, since All-Star break, they have turned it up to another gear. Right now they're down at the half, but that doesn't mean anything with Golden State. They can be down 20 points and they'll still come back.
Right.
So that doesn't mean anything. But I think the biggest question is what happened to Stephen Curry? Is he going to continue with this game right now? And I think the smart thing to do is this. Look, this guy you need. Steph Curry is a person you need on that floor. If his ankles are bothering him or this and that, I would honestly suggest, if you look at their schedule, look, I know it's critical. I know they're going for that 1 seed. I understand that. But I think, look, for them, it really wouldn't matter if they get the 1 seed. I think they'll still do a great job going into it. But I say you rest this guy. You got Portland, you got San Antonio. You're doing today. You got Portland. You got to go to Portland. You got Minnesota. You got the Lakers. You got Sacramento. You got Phoenix. I think you rest them for those games coming back home when they have to play Sacramento. But I think you rest him for that road trip, that 2-game road trip, L.A., and you bring him back in Sacramento because it's alert time. It's a cautious time, you know. I think they can do without him with the Portland. Portland's always played them tough. Minnesota's a great team. They're going to play a playoff team. They're going to play them tough. But the Lakers, they typically play Golden State. Historically, they played them well, but you know, Golden State's kicking another gear. I think you just wait until he comes back to bring him back in Sacramento game, or rest him until you go play Atlanta. I will rest him until San Antonio. I would not risk having that guy out. His ankles have been an ongoing problem for Stephen Curry the whole season. I will rest him until then.
I'm always on board with resting players in any sport right before the postseason, regardless if it affects your seeding or not, because you need the players to win. That's what it's about. I mean, unless we're talking about a scenario here where you're in danger of, you're at the 7th or 8th slot and you're in danger of dropping out of the playoffs altogether, rest him. It's worth it in the long run.
A tweaked ankle for Steph Curry is more severe. It's severe because he has ankle problem history. He has ankle problems.
Yeah, it just adds to it. Exactly. Yeah. Even more of a reason. I agree. I definitely agree. I mean, we're on March 8th right now. Middle of April is when the regular season wraps up. No sense in killing him during this month of March when they're going to be fine. They're going to be fine getting through it. Doesn't matter. We talked about this before. 1 seed, 2 seed, it doesn't matter to them. I don't think it really matters to them at all. It matters more so to Houston to secure the number 1 seed.
Yeah.
It does, because if Houston drops to the number 2 and somehow Golden State ends up with the 1 seed, that means there's problems in Houston.
Oh, yeah.
And that doesn't bode well for them, obviously, heading into the postseason.
Yeah. Let's just say what it is. It'll be problems for them. But, look, I just think that also Houston is this type of team where they can run on you and do well, but there's other players out. There's other teams, like I think Minnesota poses a threat. They just picked up the addition of Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose typically played well with Tom Thibodeau. Derrick Rose had his MVP year with Tom Thibodeau. And I can see Derrick Rose contributing in some type of way. Is it like MVP? Is it MVP level? No, but I see him contributing in some type of way where he's going to do well. He has done well in the Tom Thibodeau system, and I think that was the best move for him to go there. But there's teams out there like OKC that can give Houston problems. If they slow the game down, if they pound it into Steven Adams, that's a problem. So, I think that's who Houston wants to stay away from is Golden State and OKC. Those are 2 teams they definitely want to stay away from, for sure. That would give them problems going into the playoffs.
That's what's going on across the NBA right now. Let's finish out the show by talking a little golf. I want to touch on Mickelson's big victory in Mexico over the weekend and how Lefty is starting to come on here as we approach Augusta and the Masters in a couple of weeks. They actually had a great giveaway, at some different places recently I was at, and a certain memorabilia with the Masters. And, we think about March, and we think about March Madness, and then just after that usually is when everyone convenes down there in Georgia for the Masters tournament. So that fever is starting to really come into play here for a lot of golf fans and such. But Phil playing well, Tiger playing well. Also, he did not play in that event in Mexico over the weekend, but he is going to be playing here coming up. And, Tiger, it's all about staying healthy and getting reps under his belt heading into the Masters, getting more rounds of golf. And as golf fans, we can only hope that both Tiger and Phil are at their best going into the Masters, because let's face it, at the end of the day, that's all we're really curious to watch on Sunday, Keith, is to see if those two are in contention at the Masters. Because, I'll be honest, myself, if those are the only 2 players I would watch. Jordan Spieth is an incredible talent in golf. Incredible talent. He is amazing.
He is.
And he's been that way now going back a couple years. Yeah, he had that rough stretch at the Masters after he won it a couple years ago, but has rebounded since. And, there's other great young players in the game as well, from Ricky Fowler Dustin Johnson, but no one garners the attention like a Tiger Woods or a Phil Mickelson for that matter, because a lot of people tune in to see Lefty if he's in contention on Sunday. And that's what it's about. And I know it's the same for you, Keith, too. I mean, if Tiger is going to be there on Sunday, if he's rising on the scoreboard, you're going to tune in.
Oh, absolutely. Those are the two guys that you pay attention to closely. Those are the household names. You know, Tiger Woods. Everybody's been waiting for Tiger Woods to get back on the course. Everyone, and you know, and everybody. You know what? Something is everybody's rooting for him. Everybody wants him to do well, and so far he is. He's playing well. He's taking this game as like if it was like a basketball game, like Michael Jordan when he came out of retirement. He was like, I gotta get my feet back underneath me and stuff like that. It's going to take me some time, but I'm there. But he's right on pace. And then Phil Mickelson, you know, he's off the radar, and then next thing you know, he just booms. You just hear about him again. You just all of a sudden he just pops out of nowhere and he's doing something. So, you know, those two guys are going to be it's going to be interesting seeing them in the Masters. I think they're going to be in tip-top form by then, and you're going to see, you know, those guys think like Rory McIlroy and Jordan Spieth, they're going to be worried a little bit. And, you know, I think they're even now. Look, they're paying attention. Yeah. I'll say that. Yeah, we'll say that most.
You can bank on that one.
You can bank if they're paying attention. They're not like, they're not saying nothing to me, but they're definitely, after their course, they're looking up how did they do. They're definitely paying attention.
There is that effect of looking over your shoulder with Tiger. There always has been, and there always will be as long as he continues to pose a threat and to be competitive out there on the course. There's no doubt. I mean, let's face it, these other guys just don't transcend the game like Tiger did. No. And it's just not juicy. It's just not juicy, must-see television. It really isn't. I mean, I think back in 2011, Sunday at the Masters, Tiger was way down on the scoreboard, way down, and he had an incredible stretch where there was birdies, eagles, left from right, just was killing it in Amen Corner. And, I mean, before you knew it, you know, you flip the channel, you flip back, he was there, like knocking on the door of first place.
Yeah.
So it's those types of things, and to me, those were some of the best moments in all of sports that we have seen since the turn of the century. I mean, really. I mean, those types of moments where Tiger was there on Sunday was some of the best. But I think the fact that Phil is playing at a high level and continues to win in his upper 40s always is optimism for Tiger.
Yeah.
And to me, that and for any younger players as well, especially guys like, you know, the Sergio Garcias of the world who've been around a while and continue to, you know, try and find their way and win more tournaments here towards, I don't want to say the end of their career, but as they get up in age on the PGA Tour. So I think it just bodes confidence for guys like Tiger. But, you know, Phil, he's a golfer that, you know, has had success at the Masters, but at the U.S. Open, has never won the U.S. Open, and maybe is putting himself in a position to have some successes as we come up, you know, once the U.S. Open comes around in June, to do some things there. You know, you think back to Winged Foot at the U.S. Open back in the early 2000s, and him struggling with the putter, struggling with the chip here and there. So he's really at an older age. He continues to play well and continue to win. And like I said before, and for anyone who thinks that Tiger still can't reach the mark of 18 majors held by Nicklaus, I still think it's in reach potentially. I don't think he's out of it just because golf obviously is the one sport you can play into your 50s at a high level potentially, and Tiger, Stu being in his early 40s, has a chance to, if he can catch some kind of lightning in a bottle here, I mean, to me, it would be one of the great stories in sports of a comeback. If he can win a major, potentially, at any point, don't, you know, put aside this year, 2018, but if he can win a major at any point at the end of the year, I think it'll exceed a lot of expectations from people.
Absolutely. You know, I think that's his ultimate goal within himself is to get to a major. That's his ultimate goal. But I think Tiger's on that whole, and I'll say Phil Mickelson as well. And they're both on that. They're vets of the game.
Yep.
And they just know when to shine and when not to. And I think they pace themselves to the point they're like, look, I ain't got to win every major. I just need to be in it. You know, and then that's the whole thing with them. It's like I don't have to win every championship as long as I'm in it. I'll be fine. And I think when it comes to that Masters, that's when they really go all in as hard as they can. And, that's basically their national championship. When we say the NCAA tournament, that's their national championship. So that's what everybody prepares for. And, I can definitely, at the end of both these guys' careers, can I see them both getting another green jacket at the end of their career? Tiger, I can see possibly, yeah. I think he's got a chance. And Phil Mickelson, it's hard to tell, but let me just rekindle that. I definitely can see both of those guys getting another green jacket before they end their careers, for sure.
Give yourself a shot, put yourself in contention. That's all you can do. And these guys do it better than most athletes in any sport that we've ever seen. Honestly, they're right up there with the best. Final thoughts as we wrap up tonight's show here from Kings Cove.
Final thoughts. It's International Women's Day today. So I'm going to go with this, man. Women's have transcended the game of sports. Let's just say what it is. They have. It's impressive to see. When I watch basketball, I watch the WNBA, the NCAA. Yeah, it's not as flashy as it is in the NCAA, the men's play. But what you see about the game of basketball, it's the beauty to see how they run the plays right and things like that. And you see players like Cheryl Swoops who've impacted the game. Cheryl Swoops, Cheryl Miller has transcended the game. And then you see Gino Ariana, coach that transcended the game. Serena Williams, Venus Williams. You go down the way. You go down the way. You can go to Ronda Rousey, Chris Cyborg. These are UFC players that people look at. And what I'm getting at, and then you look at it, and now this thing that happened just a couple of weeks ago, you have the women's hockey team win a Olympic gold medal. And what I'm getting at is that women can do things just as well as what men can do. And it's crazy to see. And sometimes they can do it even better. And sometimes they don't get the credit as due as they should, or they don't get the marketing or anything that's done. But today, they're going to get the credit for sure. Shout out to all the women's sports out there that are playing. And I'm going to say this. I will still, to this day, want to see a women's national hockey league.
Yes,
we need to have that in our game. If they can have it in the Olympics, they should be able to have it in as a regular thing as the men's do. We have it in golf. We have it in basketball. We have it in, believe it or not, we got it in football too. We got it in football as well. We have it in tennis. We have it in gymnastics, where I think they surpass men. Figure skating. We have it in all sports. Swimming. If you see them all break records and things like that, but we don't have it in hockey, and we need to. So today is International Women's Day. Salute to all you women out there who've been holding it down, and hopefully we can eventually see another sport of Women National Hockey League come to play.
And I'm going to piggyback off of that, because we were both thinking the same exact thing, Keith. International Women's Day today. It's so important. I definitely want to make a note of it, as you did there before as well. And, you think back over the years from Billie Jean King and the Battle of the Sexes to, like you just said, in Pyeongchang just a few weeks ago, the U.S. women's hockey team claiming gold for the first time in 20 years. Might as well have been the first time in 100 years, just because of how different the world is now compared to then. And everything else in between, what women have been able to do, not only in sports, but obviously it transcends beyond sports and into all kind of different issues, cultural issues, social issues, you name it. There's a ripple effect. And just so much respect for what women have done in just so many sports, obviously, similar to what you said, Keith. And, yeah, we definitely got to get that women's hockey league going.
Yeah.
If you watch the Olympics and, if you watch the men's hockey, the women's hockey, honestly, the women's hockey was more compelling. It was much more interesting than what the men were able to do, as they came up a little short in their pursuit of gold this time around. But yeah, no, once again, I echo the same thoughts. Happy International Women's Day to all the women, not only in the sports world, but beyond as well. Congratulations. You're all great. You all do a great job, and we salute you today on this International Women's Day. Hey, that will do it for tonight's show here from Kings Cove. Thanks for listening. Big thank you to Christian Rivas from SB Nation for calling in. Awesome chatting with him. We will talk with you next week. Selection Sunday, less than 3 days away now. Break out those brackets, baby. It's coming. For Keith, I'm Brad. Keep living the dream. We'll talk to you next week.